when we think of research, it's important to realize that there's different activities. There's a landscape, a sort of ecosystem of research. They share a lot of common values, the pursuit of truth, actually, a reliance on evidence, rational debate. I'm going to say courteous discourse as much as possible as well, all aimed at increasing knowledge and, in some cases, its applications and so on. So that landscape shares these common aspects, but there are differences. Curiosity-driven science is driven bottom-up by individual scientists, often just following their curiosity, what they're interested in. I mean, I'm of that category, and I think it's a huge privilege. I've been paid all my life to pursue my curiosity. I can't believe somebody would do that. The public do. But it's important to realize that following your curiosity means that you are trying to work out a problem. And I tend to think that what's very useful here is to think of the philosopher Karl Popper, who I read when I was your age initially, I have to say. And what he pointed out to me, which is very useful, is that the way science progresses is that you have a problem and you have a hypothesis about that problem, what might explain it. And then actually you try and attack it. You attack the hypothesis. You try and disprove it. And if it survives enough attacks, you think, well, maybe this is indeed reliable evidence. But if it doesn't survive, then you get a different hypothesis, or you may abandon that whole project altogether and do something else. What this means is that although this is a very reliable way of producing knowledge, you've no idea where it's going exactly. You can't control it. It can sort of go in all sorts of directions. So a reliable way of producing knowledge, but you don't know what knowledge it is. Then if we go to the other end of the spectrum, which is applications, that's straightforward as well, in a way, because it's built on a good knowledge base where you're trying to use that knowledge to apply for some purpose. And we see it today with reusable rockets. They've got all the knowledge about doing it. It's just actually applying that. We saw it, if you heard, when I was mentioning the story about Marconi and who were based upon electromagnetic radiation that I was talking about in the previous section. Often commercially driven, but not always. It can be societal goods, especially in medicine. And that is very easily understood by politicians, political leaders and funders, because they are achieving certain objectives, and it's built on a good knowledge base. Then there's a third category which sits in the middle. It's called translational research. And the way really what it is mission-oriented discovery research. What does that mean? What it means is you're still making discoveries, but with an objective in mind, a long-term objective. Now, the danger with it is it's not really so subject to the Karl Popper test, because you're trying to achieve something. And there is a danger you don't correct what you're doing because your motivation is achievement a certain end, whereas the discovery science is trying to understand something and changing, as I've already said, the ideas and hypotheses. So it weakens the Popper approach. And the problem we have there, in my view, is that people go on too long trying to achieve something which is probably non-achievable. So that was my sort of summary of the landscape. Now, you, early on in your careers, what do you think of that? Where are you located with it? I mean, what would be your response? And I'm going to start with you.
Well, I think that where I'm at right now is probably looking at either the base that you were talking about.
Yep.
Because it feels easier to sort of like maybe figure out an hypothesis and then work towards that. But I also see that it could be a lot more interesting to go on the translational research, since I mean, if you find a very interesting topic to research and you want to apply that in the clinical day, sort of, that could also be something that I would find meaningful as a student, at least, because that's usually where I'm at every day when I'm studying or have clinical rotations, etc. And I want to make the well, sort of every patient better, you know.
Well, to be honest, I mean, biomedicine sits firmly in the translational territory. I mean, it builds on discovery, like the structure of DNA and molecular biology, with the intention of getting good patient outcome. So it really does sit there. My concern is only how do we make that work more effectively? Because you're trying to achieve something that maybe isn't achievable, of course. Any thoughts?
Well, I was actually about the achievement too. And since I'm a business and economics student,
yeah.
So I was actually thinking about it, like when we want to achieve something, or when we have scientists that actually are concentrate on achieving something big for the whole world. But we have a main problem here, and the problem is both capital and stakeholders. And the thing is, we learned it from the very beginning that systems are often built on lower cost and maximize profit.
Yeah.
But however, I personally think that maybe science and all essential things aren't just numbers and aren't just profit. But this is my opinion, not a stakeholder.
Well, let's explore that. I mean, is there another way you think of doing it? I mean, you're quite right. The pharmaceutical industry, its objective is to maximize profit for its shareholders. How would you deal with it?
Well, I think that maybe a better connection between both me and scientists and also government. So it can just be solved from one side, because in order to achieve something bigger, we need collaboration. And doing that alone is really, I believe, is frustrating, and it's going to be stopped at a certain point. So we cannot continue that without that collaboration that we need.
I've sometimes wondered whether we should think more of public-private partnerships, where the public side appreciates the societal good, and it maybe keeps in the thirst for profit under control from the private sector, and that if we could somehow optimize that, that would be good. In the UK, we have the National Health Service, for example, which is a publicly funded institution, which is an amazing source for clinical trials and so on, hardly used for that. But if we could get the links there, maybe that could be a way forward between commerce and the public that you're talking about.
Yeah, maybe for fairer word. Well, we have countries that already are at a good point, but we also have countries that are struggling for basic science. And how we can achieve this, though? Like, if we want to invest in those countries, we're also going to have problem. And this is also my question, like, do you think it's achievable or possible even for countries that don't have really strong infrastructures?
Yes, well, I mean, I give you my personal view, and it's outside my territory, that we need to focus on different sorts of problems to do with lifestyle, nutrition, and getting a healthier way of living, essentially, and maybe simpler treatments. And we heard Sally earlier saying exactly that. What comments have you got on all of this?
For me, I think more it's important for the underdeveloped countries to get help, but like not in a way that the West are ruling, like deciding how they should use the assets and how they should further their own research. That's really important, I think.
I actually agree with that we need, rather than sucking out of the developing countries so they work in highly developed countries, that we actually develop research facilities in those countries that deal with the problems that they see are most relevant and the potential solutions. I always remember when I was working in America, we tried establishing laboratories in Africa, And we couldn't cope with the fact, that electricity was off 8 hours a day. I mean, it just didn't fit with the way we operate. It has to reflect the circumstances that you're operating in. Have you yourself had experience of that in developing countries?
No.
Have any of you worked there? I wondered. No. Yeah. Okay, where else can we go with this? We talked a little bit in the previous section on the balance between all of these things. I don't know if you've got any observations on that, because I found it difficult to deal with. When you're an administrator and a leader, you want to say, we're going to spend X on this, Y on this, and Z on that. And the way we're talking about it, it varies according to the problem, and it's sort of a bit out of control. Any thoughts on this?
Well, what you actually discussed about were also trust between these different parts, right? And I think that it's really important in order to put scientific benefits into practice. But I think it's also really challenging in today's world. Maybe the lack of trust is one of the main issues here. Mm-hmm. So how we can solve this? I mean, I know it's really a broad question, but I'm really curious to know your vision. What really comes to your mind when you're thinking about this issue?
Yes. Now, we're near the end. You've got an opportunity now. You've got an audience. It's all recorded. What do you want to say about anything with any of this? And you've got 1 minute to say it.
I have more of a question for you.
Yeah.
As a young scientist, it's hard to balance between, and I'm a medical student, it's hard to when you're doing research, it's hard to balance following your curiosity, but also coming up with something that actually is useful and helpful in the medical field.
For you personally?
For me personally. How do you think? How should I, as a young scientist, think about that?
I sometimes think people who are good at the curiosity are not always so good at the application. So you have to consider that. Some people are. But recognizing that curiosity discovers, and maybe if you've discovered something, you then move in trying to get that into an application mode. And there are ways in which you can do that, both commercially and working in a sort of biomedical healthcare delivery system. So I think there are ways of doing it, but I wouldn't say it's simple, I have to say. Yes, what question or what do you want to say? I'm going around all three of you. 1 minute.
Well, it was actually the same thing for me.
Same question?
Yeah.
Am I to give the same answer or a different answer this time?
No, it's fine.
I've had a lot of experience of training students who have come to a discovery lab with me and then actually have moved in the direction of applications of the public good. Probably half the people I have trained moved on to a more application side or in servicing the biomedical industry. So I do think it is possible. I sort of think that it's difficult to mix both together, but I've had some people who are good at doing that as well.
How did you do it after you discovered CDK?
I don't think I've done anything useful in my entire life, to be perfectly honest. I'm still sort of discovering. That's what turns me on, discovery. And I'm very happy for other people to apply it, which they have done in a variety of ways. But I think I'm pretty useless at it, to be perfectly honest. What's your minute?
Oh, that's a great question. But
actually, it's no question at all. If you
no, okay. But I mean, how do you think that we should prioritize? Because I mean, we have a million questions when it comes to research and things that you should do for humanity and the global health and all. But how would you say that we should prioritize? I mean, what questions are important? Because it's also very relative compared to where you are in the world.
I'll give you a sort of answer. I think one should prioritize on where you can make the most progress. Now, that sounds callous, you know, because there are big problems you wouldn't fall under that category. But I'm old enough to remember what was called the war against cancer in the 1970s, and it achieved very little because it was a public, something people wanted to achieve, but we had no way to do it. Now we do, and so it's appropriate. So I think the problems that we should think about, not to exclusion of everything else, are ones where we can really make a difference with the knowledge base that we've got. Okay, thank you very much for your questions.
Thank you.
Very, very good. I think we go.